OPEC nations has just announced that they are going to drastically increase production. We knew that this was going to happen. The other part that has just been discovered is that we have someone who has purchased a large bundle of shorts on 30-year treasuries. And a lot of you aren't going to know what that means, but if you are curious on what shorting means, you can watch a movie called The Big Short. It is what explained what happened to the mortgage industry when mortgage-backed programs or mortgage bundles were being sold in substandard groupings, and it pretty much tanked the mortgage industry back in the day, and we had a collapse. This bet against the mortgage industry and against the U.S. Treasuries is going to mean that we have somebody betting against the U.S. economy, and that more countries are going to dump their investments, meaning we will have to raise our prices to entice people to lend us money so that we can pay our debts as the United States of America. If you have been thinking about purchasing a home, you should do it now. If you've been thinking that you need to take cash out, you should get a home equity line or take cash out on a refinance. There's no way to know what's going to happen, so you have to make your own judgment on it. But it is a very big gamble on what this bundle of purchases has just been for these shorts on the 30-year treasuries. And the fact that OPEC nations, they're going to decrease the price of oil. And in the short run, you'll have cheap oil, but that means that when they tank the oil prices, when we need oil the most, because U.S. manufacturers have pulled back and they are not producing oil, when we need to purchase oil, it will be expensive because they will raise their prices again. Get prepared. You need to have a part-time gig. You need to have money set aside. You need to have the ability to budget. If you haven't done a budget and you're making good money right now, set money aside. Get your budget in line. This is not a joke. This isn't funny, and it's concerning. And we knew that OPEC was going to do this. I talked about this previously, that this is what they were going to do, and then they will be raising their prices. So get prepared, do your budget, get some savings, get a side gig, start making some money. I'll talk to you later. Bye. I don't want to be fear-mongering, and I know this person's just trying to agitate, but I do want to address it to people that what I'm talking about for the future, it may not happen if we get some correction. But what happens if China or Japan would choose to sell 30-year treasuries means that for the mortgage industry and car loans, business loans, any type of expenses that you're going to have that you need to take a loan out, the government would have to offer a higher price in today's current market in order to pay back the money that Japan or China owns. China has about $800 billion and Japan has about $1 trillion that they've lent to the United States so that we can pay our bills. They've put that into U.S. treasuries, and they keep those loans, those bonds, they can keep them for 5 months, they can keep them for 5 years, 10 years, they can keep them for 30 years. When they would sell those early and not take the full interest and keep them for the full 30 years, the full 10 years, or whatever it is that they've purchased, that means that the U.S. government has to come up with that money to pay them back. And that means we would have to offer other countries higher prices in order for them to make up that difference and for us to make enough money to pay our bills, to also pay the interest that we're going to owe. So the cost of interest on your regular loan, your car loan, your credit card, mortgages could go up if they retaliate and start selling off their U.S. treasuries. It can be very scary. Does it happen today, immediately? No. Right now, the rates are going to continue to stay fairly stable. We're not going to see a lot of fluctuations. It's not going to be a dramatic fluctuation unless somebody does something dramatic, like selling off their treasuries. Then we'd have to see the rates, they would drop, and then we'd also see the rates go way up because the U.S. economy would have to adjust for that. And that means that the economy would come to a halt because the interest that they're going to charge you at the bank is going to be significantly higher. If you're thinking of buying right now, this is a good time to buy because you're going to get in when the rates are low. If nothing happens and rates would come down in the future, you could refinance. I'm not trying to panic you. I'm trying to give you information so that you can prepare. If you're thinking about buying, buy now. But if you're not thinking about buying, there's no reason for you to even look at this page because all I'm talking about is credit and mortgages. The other part of the reason that I'm talking to people right now is that you can get home equity. A lot of people have a bunch of equity right now. There's more equity in homes than we've seen in a long time because the price of houses have gone up quite a bit. If you take out a home equity line, you never have to utilize it. You would just have access to that money when you needed it. I have heard that some credit unions and some smaller banks are no longer offering home equity lines. So getting a home equity line now would allow you to have that security to hold on to it so that if something would happen in the future where your budget was really tight, you could borrow against that equity on your home. And your rate would be fixed on today's rates. That's the benefit of doing a home equity line or refinancing now, is that you get fixed rates now. If rates go up, your rate is fixed now. Now, if rates come down, you have the opportunity that you could refinance. But I don't want to panic you. I want you to prepare. I want you to get a part-time job. I want you to start saving. I want you to pay off your debt. Because when those tariffs, because we're just now seeing that those tariffs are hitting at the port right now. And all of the products that people have purchased, if they are purchasing it and they're bringing it into the United States, they're paying that tariff of 145%, from China, if it's from China. So the products that are coming in are going to be more expensive. There are less companies bringing product in. All you have to do is just look at some of the announcements that some mayors and some governors are posting right now. Small businesses are the first to get hurt because a tariff is paid by the person that imports the goods. There are companies that they've ordered product from China, but they can't actually have the product delivered to them because they can't afford the tariff. They won't make enough money to pay the tariff. There's no profit. If I had to raise my price 100 plus another 45%, I wouldn't be making any money. So the tariffs are definitely going to hurt the small business owners. They don't have the cash. Some people might be able to weather it through if they don't have to buy as much goods right now, because we're going to have to remove those tariffs. We as a country can't afford it. Small businesses are going to go bankrupt. Having a home equity line or a business line of credit can help people when they're struggling during this transition period, to give them a little bit of a breather. But I don't want you to take out a loan if you can't afford it. I don't want you to take out a loan if you're not going to be able to repay it. The only reason you do it is to help you weather the storm, or consolidate your credit cards. Because if rates go up, the credit card interest is most certainly going up. And you know how long it takes to get a credit card paid off. It takes forever, 20, 25 years. You could put it on a home equity line and pay off your debt faster if you did it that way, because you'd have a fixed interest rate that would be lower than what your current credit card rates are. There's no way that I want to panic you, but I want you to prepare, because in the winter, your natural gas prices are going to go through the roof. That's set. We already know, because OPEC nations they're ramping up, and the United States, we are not producing natural gas because we've shut down refineries. Now, there are some natural gas refineries that are still pulling just natural gas, but about 25% of natural gas comes from the refining of oil and for drilling for oil. So if we're shutting down those refineries and we're shutting down oil companies, 25% of our natural gas is going to just vanish. Prices are going to go up. You need to prepare, because we're in May. You have time to prepare. Start saving money. Get a part-time gig. Start selling some stuff. Have a little security. Have a little nest egg that you can fall back on. If you have extra rooms, rent a room. There's a housing shortage. People are looking for a safe place to live. You can rent your rooms. And maybe it's only going to be for a year. Maybe it'll be a year and a half. But you can do it. Prepare now. Don't panic. Prepare. I'll talk to you.
In what will be the biggest cell phone in history, probably on Monday, oil executives and workers across the country are going to watch their phones and their TV screens as the markets completely melt and collapse. They're going to watch their bonuses and their jobs vanish. Because OPEC said, okay, we'll increase production again. Yeah, over 400,000 barrels a day. So on Monday, a lot of people are going to have the day they voted for. Hey, by the way, who could have predicted? Who could have ever predicted that the global oil market would crash for a third time under a Trump presidency? Wow. Yeah. This will be the third crash in 7 years. And oh, by the way, Donald Trump wasn't the president for 4 of the last 7 years. Holy cow. When you look at it that way, that's 3 oil crashes in 3 years under a Trump administration. Wow. But, yeah. Who would have thought? How again did he become known as the greatest oil and gas president ever? How was that a thing? Because politics makes people really stupid? Yes, that's why. Because politics makes people unbelievably stupid. So we're going to see massive layoffs. We're going to see the rig count just plummet like nothing. Oh my God. Production declines. We're going to see natural gas prices skyrocket. Yeah, we're going to see all of that. And we're also going to see the largest utility bills people have ever seen in their lives. And that's saying a lot, because last winter we already saw that. That's what we're going to see. And depending on how long this lasts and how many refineries we lose when oil prices do come back up, what are you going to see then? You're going to see the highest gas prices in history. Because we're going to lose more refining capacity. Because people in this country don't learn. They don't learn. I don't know why. Now, maybe it'll be short-lived, and maybe we'll sanction Iran, and this will be short-lived, and prices will recover. If they don't, this is going to be really bad. This is going to be really bad. Especially when oil prices come back. Because, you know, that $5 gas that you were screaming about under Biden, because we lost so much refining capacity under Trump, because he thinks the market should just be in a perpetual state of crashing, it'll be significantly higher than that. Everything I've predicted so far has come true. And the great thing about this one is I get to hear the announcement a couple of days before it actually happens. Many people are predicting that oil will fall below $50 on Monday. Hard to tell how much of this is already baked into the markets, because a lot of people believed they were going to do this. So some of this is baked in. Have no idea how much. Could it happen? It could absolutely happen. Could. We'll see. Thanks. So in response to my video about OPEC flooding the market and crashing the oil markets, that's coming Monday, by the way, this person says, don't forget Russia. Their economy is not sustainable with low oil prices. This is how the USSR folded. Then why is Russia doing this? Then why is Russia flooding the market and crashing oil prices, if that's the case? You see, people don't realize that these oil production increases are coming from OPEC Plus. And Russia's the largest member of OPEC Plus, and they are literally doing this with Saudi Arabia. They are fully agreeable to this. They want to do this. And do you know why Russia wants to do this? Donald Trump came out a while back and said, if you lower the oil prices, you bankrupt Russia, the war ends. And that complete lie was spread by a bunch of people, Republicans and Democrats alike. I saw several Democrats and left-leaning people on this app repeating that lie. Of course, they're people that have no knowledge of the oil and gas industry or how any of this works. Why they're repeating something Donald Trump says, I have no idea. But I came out immediately and said, that's not a thing. Russia will be fine with low oil prices. And I'm the only person that said that. It was me against the world. And now Russia themselves are lowering oil prices. Why do you think they're doing that? Because they'll be fine. Because they will be perfectly fine. And by the way, there was like 50 things that happened that brought down the USSR. It wasn't just low oil prices. That is not what folded the... No. Go read what folded the USSR. No, OPEC, Russia, OPEC Plus, Saudi Arabia. They smell blood in the water. They smell the weakness of the American economy. They smell the weakness in the U.S. oil and gas industry that has been created by Donald Trump. And now is their time to regain market share. The U.S. oil and gas industry has been taking market share from OPEC nations for nearly 10 years. Over 10 years, actually. And every time OPEC has done this in the past, it's a battle to regain that market share. They want that market share back that we took from them, and now they're coming after it. And they will bankrupt as many U.S. oil and gas companies as possible to achieve that. And Donald Trump will completely allow them to do that. Our oil and gas industry is about to go through a major transition, a major change. And what I mean is it's going to shrink. And from a perspective of OPEC, it's perfect timing. We're nearing peak oil demand. And we're in the find out stage. This is where nations go to battle for market share. And it's not even really going to be a battle. They're going to hit us. We're going to hit the floor. It's going to be over. Because our corporations cannot compete with nation states. They simply can't. And they are done allowing us to have market share for peace and prosperity, whatever. They're done with all of that. They want their market share. And they're going to get it. Thanks. This is a good question because a lot of people don't quite understand this, right? So this person asked me, maybe I missed the memo and I don't pretend to know about the markets, but how does OPEC increasing production crash our market? Genuinely confused and curious how this works. And this is a little bit complicated because oil markets and natural gas markets are much different. So to understand why, if something happens in another country, it impacts our oil prices, first you have to understand disparity in markets. How easy or how difficult is it to get a commodity to any place in the world, right? most of the countries around the world have access to most of the country's oil around the world. What that means is any country can pretty much sell their oil to any other country. It's super easy to get it there, to transport it there, to offload it, and for them to use it. The free flow of oil around the globe in markets vastly shrinks the disparity between markets. And that means that even though we have a U.S. market, West Texas Intermediate, it is so easy for us to sell our oil anywhere. And it's also so easy for those countries to sell their oil to us that it creates a scenario where it's like all the oil's in the same place because it can be sold anywhere and it can go anywhere. And that brings and reduces the disparity in the prices. That's not the case with natural gas. Not any country can receive liquefied natural gas from another country. They don't have the facilities. They don't have the capacity. There's not near as many ways and vessels to transport natural gas as there is with oil. So any country on the planet can basically easily be supplied with however much oil they need, and it's no problem. With natural gas, there's many countries around the world that can't even receive liquefied natural gas because you have to have terminals. You have to have infrastructure built that can actually process it. So other countries around the world can have shortages or surpluses of natural gas. And what that does is that creates disparity in pricing. So in Germany, natural gas can be twice as high as it is in the United States because it may be much more difficult to get that natural gas to Germany, and that causes Germany to have shortages, whereas other countries have surpluses. So right now in the United States, natural gas is about half the price as it is in Europe. And that's because it's much more difficult to get gas to Europe. But oil prices in the US and Europe, almost the same, because it's super easy to get the oil there. And one of the reasons I've been warning people about our natural gas exports and our ability to export natural gas, and the reason I've been warning people is because as that grows, it is going to shrink the disparity between US natural gas markets and foreign natural gas markets. The sole purpose for raising the export ban of US West Texas Intermediate oil in 2016 was to increase the value of it by making it available to the world. If you do that with natural gas in the United States, the exact same thing is going to happen. You're going to increase the price of natural gas. And that generates a ton of our electricity. And that's why we are seeing utility bills skyrocket across the United States. And the further and further we go along and do this, the worse and worse it's going to get. So when you have complete globalization of commodities, such as oil, anything that happens anywhere affects prices everywhere. Whereas if in Germany, they have issues getting natural gas, it doesn't affect us in the United States that much. Because we have all the natural gas we need, sort of, at the moment. That's changing. So OPEC increasing production and lowering our prices is sort of the same effect as if war breaks out in some other country and increases our prices. Anything that happens anywhere with oil affects our prices. Thanks.
This is the early petroleum market report for May 5th, 2025. WTI crude oil futures fell more than 2% to around $57 per barrel on Monday as OPEC Plus agreed to ramp up production, fueling fears about a global supply glut. The oil cartel said it will accelerate oil output hikes for a second consecutive month, raising output in June by 411,000 barrels per day. This could bring back as much as 2.2 million to the market by November, as the group's leader Saudi Arabia seeks to punish some fellow members that have exceeded their quotas. These supply concerns overshadowed earlier news about China weighing talks with the U.S. that could ease trade tensions between the two economic giants. On the geopolitical front, tensions in the Middle East increased after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to retaliate against the Houthis and to act against their patron Iran after a missile fired by the group landed near Israel's main airport. In response, Iran's defense minister Aziz Nasirzadeh warned on Sunday that Tehran would strike back if attacked by the U.S. or Israel. In the natural gas market, U.S. natural gas futures rose toward a 4-week high of $3.70 per million British thermal units early Monday, extending a 16.6% gain in the previous week, driven by a drop in output and record LNG exports. Production has fallen by 2.8 billion cubic feet per day over the past 5 days to a 2-month low of 102.6 billion cubic feet per day on Friday. Also, LNG exports hit a record average of 16.0 billion cubic feet per day in April, driven by increased flows to the under-construction Plaquemines facility. Looking ahead, meteorologists projected temperatures in the lower 48 states would remain mostly warmer than normal through May 17th. Analysts and market players suggest continued mild weather and high output could lead to record injections in May. Meanwhile, EIA data showed a larger than usual storage build of 107 billion cubic feet for the week ended April 25th, due to mild weather reducing demand. That surpasses both last year's 64 BCF increase and the 5-year average of 58 BCF. Storage levels are now near seasonal norms. Thank you for watching EnergyNewsTV.com, your home for fresh energy news.
Oil prices are tanking. Isn't that a good thing? No, it's not. It usually signals a recession when that happens, and that's not even the scariest part. So how does this all happen? So firstly, Oil prices are tanking because OPEC decided to increase supply. And when that happens and there's not a lot of demand, prices fall. Prices have to fall because you're not at the equilibrium point. Econ 101, supply and demand. And why is there not a lot of demand for oil? Well, there could be many reasons. Slowdown in economic activity, slowdown in shipping, manufacturing, just general slowdown in economic activity. And so during recessions and global slowdowns, oil does fall, and that's why it has spooked the market. And when I said this is not the scariest part, what do I mean? If this continues, this will create another problem for the Fed to fight. We've got inflation, we've got stagflation, and then there's now a potential risk of deflation. Deflation happens when consumers and businesses delay purchases of goods and services because they expect prices to be lower. And because they expect oil prices to be lower and therefore things get cheaper. That usually is not the case. But as a result, businesses may have to lower their prices and it becomes a bit self-fulfilling. Consumer demand softens, businesses have to lower prices, and therefore corporate profits fall, and another problem for the Fed to fight. And that is why when the Fed spoke today, Jerome Powell has been very careful with his words, because consumers have already started panic buying ahead of tariffs, pulling up their spending. Spend. If the Fed came out and said the economy is slowing, consumers may delay their spending because they may expect prices to decrease. And if that happens, that'll make things even worse. And that'll drive inflation to come down even faster, making the situation that we're currently in even tougher to get out of. I'm really trying not to be doom and gloom. I'm just trying to relay the bigger picture of what is happening here, why I think it's going to be very important to be patient, why we've only seen the tip of the iceberg, and why this could be a really good time to park money in, safe haven assets like Bitcoin, gold, and even international markets. The US is not the only stock market you can invest in. I'll be putting up some more content on other stock ideas from other countries, Europe, China, etc. But please be patient and be careful out there.
You're learning so many important things, and I'm so proud of you.
OPEC explained. OPEC was formed to counter U.S. dominance of oil markets in the 1950s, and the 1973-1974 Arab oil embargo cemented its reputation as a U.S. rival. It is known economically as a cartel, which means the group is able to utilize monopoly price setting, avoiding the usual price cycle of supply and demand. This means this group sets prices as it sees fit, and can hike prices up even in a market condition where it should be low, with the highest ever being 171 USD.
OPEC, to give you the very simple answer, it's an organization whose basic reason to exist is it's in its name, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. The original members were 4 countries in the broadly defined Middle East, Iran included there, plus Venezuela. That was 60 plus years ago today, and a lot has happened since. 60 plus years ago, the basic animating idea was we, who are custodians, producers of all this oil, we should be the ones who determine how much of it is sold and produced and exported around the world. These countries felt a little bit as a response to what had been control of the global oil market vested in global multinational oil companies. They wanted to get together as a core group of quite powerful oil producers and say, we're going to be the ones setting the target price of oil by setting the target production amounts. We'll keep some oil in the ground if we see fit. We'll produce and export more if we see fit. But we want to vest that authority within our member states. As the membership has grown, you now have 13 within OPEC, 24 in this OPEC Plus. But those core 13 are the ones who are by and large setting those production targets that ultimately have a huge impact on the global price of oil. There has been, almost as long as OPEC has existed, there has been controversy surrounding its role in all of this. If you ask members of OPEC what OPEC is, they would say, it's good we're here because it's arguably one of the most, if not the most important global commodities, and you wouldn't want to have wildly fluctuating oil prices that might happen if we weren't doing this careful work of calibrating the situation in the global economy. A lot of other people would say that's really not what's going on here. The word cartel is thrown around a lot. And what's meant by that is a suggestion, if not an accusation, that OPEC basically operates to benefit its own members. Because if you can keep prices at a certain level, you're going to generate more wealth for yourself. The same way, by the way, the oil companies would have done had they been the only ones directing this. That is always, particularly when oil prices rise precipitously, there's where the controversy comes in. The future of OPEC is a really interesting question, and it's intertwined, of course, with the future of energy on this planet. Many people made the point when Biden made this trip to Saudi Arabia. The answer is not to try to browbeat the members of OPEC to do things a certain way. The answer is to wean yourself off of oil. We've seen a really dramatic example in the wake of the war in Ukraine. The Europeans, the Germans in particular, have realized too late, but they've realized they need to wean themselves off of Russian oil and gas. The result, though, across the continent has been a very precipitous drop in demand. They basically just asked their citizens to try to cut their oil and gas usage. There's a big push to renewables across most of Europe. And that, in the long term, is what's going to make a difference. Because if the world does what almost everybody on the planet agrees is necessary, to go to wind and solar and other greener sources, renewable sources of energy, then OPEC will have lost its reason to exist, or at least its power and relevance.
And now, back to our regularly scheduled program.
Gas prices in Alabama, not so bad, huh? Yeah, gas prices keep going up. Not down, you damn fools.
Tell me you don't understand oil and gas by making an ignorant statement like that. I was being sarcastic, purely sarcastic. Gas prices are rising. Oil rigs are shutting down all across the country and the world. We can't sell our oil and gas outside of the United States practically because he cut us off at the neck. Gas prices are going to continue to climb exponentially. If you don't understand that, that means you don't know anything about the oil and gas industry. You don't follow it. I follow it every day. You don't seem to understand it. Go follow Mr. Global so you can learn something. He's the best way to learn about it if you're a beginner, but stop showing your stupidity.
Mr. Global still hasn't explained why his prediction of the oil market crash on 5/5 was so epically wrong. This is not going to be the flex you think it is. And by the way, every expert missed that prediction. But what traders are betting on, because this oil production increase that we're talking about starts on June the 1st. Oil traders are betting that oil production in the United States is going to fall much faster than we believe it will. They are also betting that we are about to do something with Iran. So I would ask, is it a good thing that oil prices aren't falling faster because we're losing production and market share to foreign competitors, nation states, faster than we thought? And we don't even know for sure that's going to happen. That's just what traders are betting on. Let me ask you another question. Is it a good thing that companies that operate businesses in the United States are going to lose their business or lose their employees because the president of the United States requested foreign nation states to compete with them harder? Why is that a good thing? And while my prediction may take longer to play out than I originally thought, it's going to play out because guess what? Next month, they're going to do the same increase. And they're going to do it again in July, and they're going to do it again in August, and they're going to do it again in September until they increase production by 2.2 million barrels a day. You think this is over? We're not even 25, we're 25% into this deal. There's something else you need to understand, and that is that traders are right about 35% of the time. I have been making predictions on this app for 4 years. I've been wrong twice. out of hundreds of predictions. So I'm not concerned about missing on a prediction. If I was, I wouldn't make them to begin with. That's why very few people make them. Oh, and just so you know, the other prediction I was wrong on was the price of gas, and I missed it by 1 cent. Yeah. Regardless, don't get it twisted. Unless we do something with Iran to stop their oil production, when OPEC gets that additional 2.2 million barrels a day of oil onto the market, we're screwed. The U.S. oil and gas industry is screwed. And this isn't a hard prediction to make because I've seen it before. The last time Donald Trump was president, in 2018, he did this exact same thing. And when he did it, bankruptcies in oil and gas more than doubled, and we lost over 1/3 of our capacity to drill. The oil and gas industry in the United States has seen its heyday. It has seen its best days. They're not coming back after this. The same way we destroyed the auto industry in the United States, the same way we destroyed all manufacturing in the United States. The very thing that Donald Trump claims he's trying to reverse right now, he's doing to the U.S. oil and gas industry. And he's doing it at a time where energy demand in the United States is going to grow faster than it's ever grown in history. Now, I don't know how all of this other stuff is going to play out with the tariffs and the manufacturing. I have my ideas, but I'm going to stick to oil and gas. When this is all said and done, Donald Trump will be the biggest failure of a president ever in the history of the United States when it comes to oil and gas and the national security implications that are involved with that.
So there was a point in time, because I was just reading about this, in 2020, right as the pandemic was starting. Yeah. And because there was a lot of the demand for oil and gas was falling, Russia and Saudi Arabia got into a price war on oil. And the price of gas just plummeted. Yeah. And a bunch of the people in the oil industry went to Donald Trump and said, you know MBS at Saudi Arabia, you know Putin, for better or worse, get them together.
And let's make this.
And let's reduce production so the price of oil goes up. Yeah. Now, here's the bargain. Do you save the oil companies or do you save all the people who are suffering from the pandemic and want to pay less for gas?
Yeah.
And so when you
people.
And if you track it, the reduction in production of oil, they pulled back so much so that the price went up. And then over time, over the following 2 years, so that was from early 2020 to late 2022, they increased production. And when you increase production, the price of gas goes back down some. So when they were reducing production, the price of gas went like this. And that was the start of inflation. Because just like he says all the time, drill, 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 because that'll reduce the prices of everything else. Yeah. Well, he literally caused the prices of everything else to start going up. So by the time he left,
the price of oil is expensive. The shipping is more expensive.
Everything is
it's
more
trickle down effect from oil.
Right.
Mom, I'm going to do it, Mom. Can't do it.
People don't understand that the collapse of the oil and gas industry in the United States will completely erase anything Doge has accomplished. Yeah. It's also very weird that we're punishing countries all over the world for manufacturing goods to be shipped into the United States so we can afford to buy them. People are celebrating the fact that we're trying to put a stop to that. At the same time, they're celebrating the fact that we're also begging those same countries for oil for the same reason, to make it cheap. What I'm saying is at the same time, we're making all these moves that are supposedly to rebuild manufacturing in the United States. At the same time we're doing that, we're doing the exact same thing to oil and gas that we did to manufacturing to lose all the manufacturing. And people are celebrating both of those things, even though they are diametrically opposed. Yeah. Like all of these people are actively saying that they are happy, that they are more than happy to pay more for goods made in the United States, while at the exact same time, they are not happy to pay more for goods produced in the United States that are oil and that are gas. Huh? Yeah, it seems the patriots aren't quite as patriotic as they claim to be. And understand something else, the production increases that OPEC have currently implemented, that's not the last of them. They're going to do this again in July. And by the time they're done, they're going to restore 2.2 million barrels a day of oil production by September of this year. Yeah. So what you've seen so far is what, 25% of what's coming. Yeah, we're not even, 25% of what's coming. Yeah. I think a lot of people think that this stops after this announcement in this month. No, this is the beginning. We're still in the beginning stages. This goes on throughout summer and into fall. Yeah. So instead of decimating the market in one fell swoop and doing it quickly, they're going to do it softly over time, over a period of months. Yeah. Not exactly sure why. They've never done it that way before, but they're certainly doing it that way now. And who has ramped up drilling like crazy and who's drilling a lot? Russia. Yeah. We're losing our oil industry while Russia is building theirs. Thanks. Okay, real quick, time for class. You remember that movie about McDonald's and Ray Kroc and how he discovered the two founders in their one little restaurant? And he ended up building it. He ended up taking the whole thing over. He built McDonald's to what it was. And then there was that scene in that movie where the guy sitting across from him said, Ray, you're not going to get rich selling 15-cent hamburgers. You're in the real estate business. You're not in the hamburger business. You're in the real estate business. Same. You see, the way you build an oil company is not by taking the profits that you earn through your oil company and putting them in your pocket. What are you going to do, pay taxes? No, you take that money and your company purchases appreciable assets. Oil and gas properties, real estate, land, structures, you name it. Appreciable properties, appreciable assets. That's how you grow an empire. That's how you grow an oil and gas company. But you certainly don't pay yourself. That's just silly. And my company has more than 10x'd in the last 3 years. So when I say I'm worried about, the workers of the oil and gas industry due to the downturn, it's because those are the people that have the jobs that depend on that income. Those are the people that are going to lose their jobs. That's why I'm worried about those people. And for those of you on this app who don't like me because of what I say about oil and gas, who seem to want to celebrate this downturn because you think it will impact me negatively, cause me to go broke or file bankruptcy, there's something you need to understand. Just like Ray Kroc, I'm in the real estate business. So when I say I'll be fine, I'll be fine. Okay, this is a great opportunity to explain something. I still have yet to hear how a global oil glut increases gas prices in the United States, a country with millions of excess barrels per day capacity and a massive exporter. Production exports decrease because prices crash. First of all, this has nothing to do with imports or exports whatsoever. When people like me or Gio Hussar or Robert Rapier, when we talk about gas prices increasing due to a global oil glut, we speak in terms of years, not weeks, okay? If you need to know how a global oil glut causes high gas prices, look at the Biden administration. We had a global oil glut at the end of Obama. We had a global oil glut at the end of Trump. All of this caused the United States to lose 1 million barrels a day in refining capacity. And that was the largest driver of $5 gas under the Biden administration. Not the high oil prices, the loss of refining capacity. And with the condition of some of the refineries in the United States right now, another oil crash will lead to more losses in refining capacity. And when oil prices recover, gas prices will be higher at the same oil price than they were last time. If you remember under the Biden administration, people were like, how come gas is $5 when oil is $100? And the last time oil was $100, gas was $4. That's because we had lost refining capacity. That's why gas was higher when oil was at the same price it had been historically at another time when gas was cheaper. So after this oil crash is over, and this is an oil crash, keep in mind, this 400,000 barrel a day increase is not a one-time thing. They're going to do it again for July, August, September, October. This is going to be an over 2 million barrel a day oil increase. So the crash is upon us, right? If we lose more refineries, and I suspect we will, when those oil prices recover, 12, 18 months after the crash, you're going to see gas prices go through the roof because our refining capacity is once again going to be crippled. That's how an oil glut causes high gas prices. And when we talk about this kind of stuff, we think in terms of years, not what's going to happen next week or next month. We talk about long-term things because you have to get out in front of it. Because when that day comes, If it's 18 months from now or whenever, when those gas prices start just going through the roof, everyone's going to be making excuses as to why it's happening, and they're going to be blaming it on whoever's in office, right? So you tell people now this is going to happen. You get out in front of it. A lot of people think for some reason that gasoline prices are going to rise in 2 weeks because of this. No, we're looking at long term. Long term.
Hey, Mr. Big Oil. $57 a barrel right now, right? And here's the average gas price throughout the country. Over $3 a gallon, close to $3 a gallon. But I'm curious because back in 2012, it was $94 a barrel. And the average gas price was $3.60 at $94 a barrel. So currently $57 a barrel, and we're paying over $3 a gallon for gas. Or we can look at 2012 when it was $94 a barrel and we were paying over $3 a gallon for gas. Make it make sense.
Okay. Yeah. That's easy. It's because we have less gas. We have less supply. You see right here, this is what we exported in 2012. This is what we export now. We export significantly more gasoline than we did in 2012. And gasoline production pretty much stayed the same. These charts show how much gasoline demand has grown. And since you used 2012, between 2013 and 2019, the demand for gasoline grew by 2.5 million barrels a day. 2019 to 25, that's slowed down a lot. But when you add all of this up, the demand for gasoline has risen by about 3 million barrels a day. So in addition to all of the additional demand, exports of gasoline have increased by double, at least. We are keeping less gas in the United States. That's why it costs more. Same thing with LNG. We're exporting so much natural gas, the prices are going up. In 2016, we passed a law that lifted exports of all of this stuff. There was an export ban before then. That ban was lifted. The Republicans wanted to export all of this oil, natural gas, gasoline, all of it. The Democrats didn't. They made a deal where the Democrats got some renewable energy stuff, the Republicans got exports. And the entire reason they wanted those export bans lifted was to raise the price. It was a gift to oil companies. I have had a plan for a long time that I actually presented to my senator to reduce gas prices in the United States, and they won't do it. And the plan is, once the national average price of gasoline gets to a certain point, there's a trigger that happens, and it reduces exports until those gas prices fall. These things would happen automatically. But we don't have anything like that. So gas prices can go just as high as they can possibly go, and there's nothing to stop it. It's crazy to think that even though we produce more oil than any country in history of the world, that our gas prices are still rising. You ever wondered what good it does the American person that we're the number one oil producer? Does it do them any good at all? Sure doesn't seem like it. Thanks.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
There you go. It was $1.98. Prove me wrong.
Yes, another Trump supporter twisting themselves into knots trying to claim that Donald Trump did not lie when he said gas was $1.98. I have a few questions for you, sir, that can possibly clear this up. Donald Trump said gas hit $1.98 in a few states, and it was $4.50. Could you tell me what few states that was?
If Donald Trump was talking about the RBOB, why did he say a few states when the price of the RBOB is the same in every state in the country? I'm just curious why he would say a few states. You didn't know that, did you? Yeah, you don't even know what chart you're looking at. You tried to claim that gas prices were falling because of the debates when we were just entering, winter seasonal demand. Could you also explain why he said gas was $4.50? Was he talking about the wholesale price of gas then? When he said it was $4.50, was he claiming the wholesale price was $4.50? Or was he talking about the retail price? Did he change? In one half of his sentence, was he talking wholesale and the other half talking retail? Because gas has never hit $4.50 on a wholesale basis. It's never happened. I have another question. Have you or anybody you know or anyone you've ever talked to or any politician ever in the world, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Ted Cruz, name one, Lindsey Graham, just name any politician, have you ever in your life heard anyone refer to the price of gas as the wholesale price? Has that ever happened once in your entire life? No? Yeah. I talk about the wholesale price of gas sometimes, but you know what? I don't call it gas. I call it RBOB. Because that's what it is. Yeah. I guess it'll be the last question, then I'll leave you alone, Donald Trump said gas prices are lower than anyone could have ever possibly imagined. No one would believe how low gas prices have gotten. His words. So if the $1.98 was in fact lower than anything anyone could have ever believed, can you explain why the wholesale price of gas was $1.87 on September the 9th, 2024, a couple of months before he was even elected? If it's a price no one could even believe. Can you also tell me how many times you heard Joe Biden, Donald Trump, any Republican, any Democrat, anyone ever celebrate that gas was $1.87 on September the 9th, 2024? Did that? No, that didn't happen, did it? That's because this isn't gas, this is RBOB, and this is wholesale, and we don't talk about gas and wholesale prices, because you don't pay wholesale prices. Okay, one last question, and then I'll be done. Do you think you'll ever get your self-respect back? You think that's a thing that'll ever happen? You think you'll ever get your self-respect back? No? I didn't think so either. Thanks! This is one of the problems that this country has, and that it does nothing to protect consumers. It does nothing to protect the people that live here and the costs that they may incur due to their policies. So what are we talking about? We're talking about export controls. And hang with me for a second. Mr. Global, would coming back to the 2016 law push the price of gasoline back down? Yes. Prior to 2016, we had a 40-year ban on the export of oil. Since 2016, we have almost tripled the amount of gasoline we export out of the United States. People want to know why oil is in the 50s and the national average for gasoline is still $3.16 or whatever. That's why. We're exporting a ton of our gas out of the country, leaving less here, which makes it cost more. The exact same thing we're doing with LNG. We're exporting so much LNG out of the country that we are paying a lot more for natural gas. And that is because this country does nothing to protect its consumers. Our government does not care about us. They care about corporations. And corporations make a lot of money when they sell our stuff overseas. And if that causes us to have higher gas prices, pay more for heating, utilities, whatever, then just so be it, right? As long as the corporations are getting rich, who cares? A lot of the things the Trump administration is upset about other countries supposedly doing to us is the export controls they have in place to protect their consumers. That's what he's pissed off about. And their businesses, but also their consumers. We don't protect our consumers. So yes, sir, restoring the export ban or some modification of the law that limits exports of gasoline specifically would absolutely drive down gas prices in the United States. As a matter of fact, if Donald Trump really wanted to lower gas prices, he could have done that on day one. You don't have to worry about the price of oil. You don't have to worry about you don't have to do all this crazy stuff. You just limit the exports. Next thing you know, you got more gas in the United States, more supply, cost goes down. It's really pretty simple, but they don't want to do it that way. And when Donald Trump said that he would cut the price of gasoline in half within 6 months or whatever ridiculous thing he said, this is one of the reasons these exports is why it absolutely cannot happen. When Joe Biden put a pause on LNG exports, it was because of the amount of money it's going to cost American consumers in the future. You're going to see it on your utility bills. They don't care. They do not care. And no, you don't have to have export controls on everything, but there are specific targeted things that you need to limit your exports of that are very price sensitive, that can cause inflation and hardship for consumers in your country. And we should be thinking about that sometimes, but we're pro-business. We're not pro-people. We're pro-business. Thanks.
If you take your credit card and you go shopping and you run up a large credit card debt, you're running a trade deficit with all those shops. Now, it would be pretty strange if you then blamed all the shop owners for having sold you all those things. That is the level of understanding of the President of the United States. The trade deficit does not represent at all trade policies. It represents spending relative to production or earnings. We call that an identity. I teach it in the second day of my course in international monetary economics. Trump never made it to the second day. The congressmen that vote on the budget got into office by being paid for their campaigns by rich people who don't like taxes. So the political system says spend, but don't tax us. And for that, Donald Trump blames the world. Okay, I fail him for this if he were my student.
Did China just replace US dollar? Now, for the folks that are kind of following this trade war, actually the biggest thing we should talk about is the currency itself. It has nothing to do with tariff and anything else. So for the folks that might understand this, essentially everything is traded in US dollar today, and it's used by this system called SWIFT. This technology, it's pretty old and it's really slow, but because US dollar is majority of the currency that we use today, around 50% of it, they really use that as a tool to kind of sanction different countries, essentially. So not allowing people to trade in US dollars, so therefore Russia, Iran, a lot of countries don't trade in that. But what China has been building, and it's been going on for a couple of years already, this is the kind of sad part, is another system. It's called mBridge. mBridge. And essentially what it means is that it's using a digital currency system that's replacing the SWIFT system. And this is quite neat because it allows essentially all different companies and also countries to trade within their own currency with a better and faster, cheaper system that's using blockchain technology. What it means is that allowing people to trade freely and also less relying on the US dollar and also the US policies and government who kind of dictates based on war, essentially, or power of threatening, different countries. This is the thing we actually should be talking about, because what it will do, the sad part is that I think the US dollar will decrease its value less and less. So if you work in US, you're getting paid a US dollar, your value becomes so low at one point, essentially US become a third world country and our citizens essentially, work on the pennies, right? And then maybe this is what this administration is trying to do, so that we're essentially becoming child laborers. This is just another example where kind of US government doesn't control a lot of these regulations and let cryptocurrency trade and technology spread like a pyramid scheme, where other countries are actually actively understanding and developing blockchain technology to help its citizens. So while we're here basically trading meme coins and scamming each other, other countries are developing and understanding how to use the tech to service and essentially create a better fair trade with the rest of the world. Anyways, comment below if you want to learn more, and hopefully this spreads and get people more understanding what is actually happening at a global scale. Just one thing to add, you might think this technology, this mBridge, is new. It's not new. It's been going on for some years now. And in many countries like, Switzerland, Europe, Singapore, Australia, you name it, almost every country is piloting this already. So with the escalation of now that everyone is essentially avoiding trade with the US, we'll just not use US dollars, and the US dollar value will decrease drastically, more than even if this technology didn't exist. So it's quite sad. And anyways, I hope you can share this video to someone, and hopefully this gives people more understanding what is happening around the world and how potentially we can save ourselves from this global failure or lack of understanding of how technology is really changing all of us. Ooh, you're behind the news. So the folks who don't understand this, oil is almost always trading US dollar. It's actually like the biggest thing that is trading US dollar. They stopped doing that. Like Saudi Arabia just made a bunch of payments in yuan with China because they're like, why do we use USD?
Yeah, just so you know.